There is something your heart may already know, even if your mind has been trying to ignore it. Someone did not simply enjoy talking to you. They did not just think you were interesting for a little while. They did not accidentally spend time thinking about you. Somewhere along the way, without expecting it, they slowly fell in love with you. It was not a decision they planned to make. It was not something they could control. In many ways, it surprised them as much as it would surprise you. What makes this even more meaningful is that it was not caused by the obvious things people usually notice. It was not only your appearance. It was not because you tried to impress them every chance you had. It was not because you chased them, demanded their attention, or tried to force a relationship. Their feelings grew for much deeper reasons. There were certain qualities inside you that reached places in their heart they had protected for a very long time. Those hidden places had stayed locked away for years, and somehow your presence quietly opened the door. You may have noticed moments that never seemed to make complete sense. Sometimes they looked at you with unusual warmth, almost as if they wanted to say something but could not find the words. There were times when they seemed completely present, listening carefully, smiling differently, making you feel as though you were the only person in the room. Then, without warning, they became distant. They answered less. They seemed harder to understand. Their energy changed so suddenly that you may have wondered if you imagined the connection in the first place. That kind of mixed behavior can be painful because it feels confusing. How can someone seem deeply connected one day and emotionally unavailable the next? Many people believe that real love always creates certainty from the very beginning. They expect love to move in a straight line, becoming stronger every day without fear or hesitation. But human emotions rarely work that way. Sometimes genuine love does not create comfort first. Sometimes it brings hidden fears to the surface. It shines light on emotional wounds that have been buried for years. It reminds people of losses they never fully healed from. Instead of making someone feel immediately confident, love can make them feel exposed in ways they never expected. This is especially true for people who have spent years protecting their emotions. When someone like that begins to care deeply, they do not only experience happiness, they also experience vulnerability. They suddenly realize that another person has the power to affect their emotional world. That realization can be exciting, but it can also feel frightening. Psychology has long suggested that certain people enter our lives for reasons we cannot easily explain. Some individuals seem to touch parts of us that no one else reaches. Their presence naturally lowers emotional walls without them even trying. They do not force openness. They simply create an atmosphere where pretending becomes difficult. Around them, masks begin to fall away. This is often why a person who appears strong and emotionally controlled can suddenly become uncertain. The confidence they usually depend on begins to shake. Their carefully built emotional defenses no longer feel as reliable as they once did. Without realizing it, they begin reacting from a much deeper place inside themselves. The first reason they fell in love with you is surprisingly simple, yet incredibly rare. You made them feel emotionally safe without trying to control them. That may sound ordinary, but in today's world, it is far less common than people realize. Many relationships quietly carry invisible pressure. Even when no one says it out loud, there are silent expectations. People look for constant reassurance. They want immediate answers. They expect endless proof of love and commitment. They fear silence. They fear distance. They fear uncertainty. Because of those fears, many people unknowingly place emotional weight on the person they care about. Their actions silently communicate messages like, "Stay close to me all the time. Explain every change in your mood. Make me feel secure. Show me that I matter every single day." Your energy felt different. Even when you wanted closeness, you did not make them feel trapped. You offered kindness without making it feel like a debt they had to repay. You listened without trying to control every conversation. You respected their space without acting cold or indifferent. You stayed genuine without demanding that they become someone they were not. To someone carrying emotional scars, this kind of behavior feels almost unfamiliar. People who have been hurt often expect love to become pressure. They believe that emotional closeness will eventually turn into criticism, disappointment, or obligation. Somewhere in their past, opening their heart may have led to pain. Perhaps they trusted the wrong person. Perhaps they were judged when they became vulnerable. Maybe their honesty was ignored, or their feelings were treated as weaknesses instead of strengths. Experiences like these quietly shape the nervous system. Over time, people stop showing every part of themselves. They become careful about what they reveal. They think twice before expressing emotions. They build invisible walls, convincing themselves that distance is the safest way to avoid getting hurt again. Then you entered their life. Without even realizing it, your calm presence challenged everything they believed about emotional connection. You did not try to force them to open up before they were ready. You did not punish every moment of silence. You did not treat every delay as rejection. Instead, your actions quietly communicated something they had almost forgotten was possible. I see who you are, and I am not here to control you. Those words may never have been spoken, but your behavior allowed them to feel exactly that. Emotional safety has a powerful effect on the human mind. It allows the body to relax. It lowers constant emotional alertness. It gives someone permission to breathe instead of preparing for the next disappointment. Little by little, they began feeling calmer whenever you were around. They may not have understood why your conversations stayed in their mind long after they ended. They may not have known why your smile returned to their thoughts during quiet moments. They may not have expected to miss your presence so quickly whenever you were gone. Yet these small emotional experiences slowly became impossible to ignore. This is often how real love begins. It does not always arrive with dramatic words or overwhelming passion. Sometimes it starts with peace. Sometimes it starts with relief. Sometimes it begins when another person's presence quietly feels like home. The mind usually notices attraction first, but the nervous system recognizes safety before the conscious mind can explain it. Long before someone says, "I think I love this person," their emotions have already begun moving in that direction. Ironically, this growing sense of safety can also awaken fear. Once someone realizes they truly value a connection, they suddenly become aware of how much they could lose. The stronger their feelings become, the more vulnerable they feel. Instead of only enjoying the relationship, they begin worrying about what might happen if it disappears. That fear often creates confusing behavior. Just when everything seems to be getting closer, they suddenly become quieter. They answer more slowly. They seem distracted. They appear emotionally distant, even though their feelings have actually become stronger. From the outside, it looks as though they are losing interest. Inside, the opposite may be happening. Many people mistake this reaction for emotional coldness, but often it is emotional overload. They are not always pulling away from you. They are pulling away from the intensity of what they are beginning to feel. Their heart wants to move closer, while their fear tells them to protect themselves before they become too attached. This silent battle happens more often than people realize. It is not created because love is weak. It happens because love has become important. And when something truly matters, the possibility of losing it suddenly becomes real. That is why the beginning of deep love is not always filled with certainty. Sometimes it is filled with quiet hesitation, hidden emotions, and unanswered questions. Yet beneath all of that uncertainty, something beautiful has already started growing. Without fully understanding how it happened, they have begun giving a part of their heart to you, and that is only the beginning of a much deeper story. Again, even if they tried to stop themselves from wanting it. But hope can feel dangerous for someone who has learned to survive by expecting less. Because hope creates emotional investment. Suddenly, silence becomes painful. Distance starts to matter. Vulnerability carries real consequences, and this is often where emotional self-sabotage begins. Not because someone does not want love, but because they want it so deeply that the fear of losing it becomes too overwhelming to handle. So a person can truly love you and still pull away. They can miss you every day and remain silent. They can feel everything deeply and still avoid getting closer. It may not seem logical, but emotionally it makes perfect sense, because when love and attachment have been connected with pain in the past, the mind automatically tries to protect itself from experiencing that same pain again. And if you have been thinking about one specific person, you may keep asking yourself why they have not simply admitted it, why they have not expressed what seems so obvious through their actions. The answer is not always that they do not care. Sometimes it is because they care far more than they know how to handle. Speaking those feelings out loud feels like surrender. It means accepting vulnerability. It means admitting emotional dependence. It means realizing that you matter to them in a way they can no longer completely control. And for some people, that is the most difficult step of all. Not feeling love, but accepting that they truly feel it. Because once they accept it, they also accept that you now have the ability to affect them in very deep ways. And that changes everything. So what you have been witnessing may not be the absence of love at all. It may simply be the inner conflict that love itself has created. The attraction, the hesitation, the silence, the emotional intensity, the confusion, all of these things can exist together at the same time. Because when genuine emotional change begins, it often feels unstable before it feels peaceful. It starts breaking down old defenses. It questions old identities. It forces the mind to adjust to something it never expected. And that is why this connection may have felt incredibly meaningful while also feeling deeply confusing. It asks survival habits that once felt necessary to finally step aside. And that process is rarely smooth. It is often messy. It is uncomfortable. It can make someone appear emotionally distant, while inside they are slowly falling apart. So if you have only been judging this connection by what you can see on the surface, you may have missed everything happening underneath. What makes this even more painful is that many people believe love should immediately bring clarity. But psychologically, that is not always how it works. Sometimes real love creates confusion before it creates certainty, because it crashes into everything that has never been healed. It pulls buried emotions back to the surface. Old emotional wounds begin speaking again. Fear of abandonment returns. Trust issues return. Feelings of shame return. Even childhood experiences quietly begin shaping adult reactions once again. This is why two people can genuinely feel something powerful and still struggle to move toward each other. Love is never only about chemistry. Love also awakens unfinished emotional work. And when that unfinished work rises to the surface, a person usually has only two options: continue running without awareness, or finally face what has secretly been controlling their life for years. This may also explain why you felt something powerful in their eyes, even when their words never matched what you sensed. Eyes often reveal truths that words cannot express. The body communicates what the ego desperately tries to hide. The nervous system speaks long before honest conversations ever begin. Maybe you noticed how they looked at you when they believed you were not watching. Maybe you felt the change in their energy whenever someone else became close to you. Maybe you sensed emotional tension in situations that should have felt completely ordinary. Those moments were probably not imagined. People with strong intuition often question themselves because emotionally guarded individuals naturally create uncertainty. But intuition does not depend only on logic. It notices patterns. It senses quiet emotional shifts. It recognizes emotional truth hidden beneath behavior. And if a part of you kept feeling there was something deeper behind their silence, There very well may have been, but there is something extremely important you need to understand here, especially if you have spent a long time waiting, analyzing every detail, hoping and hurting. Their love for you may be real. Their emotional struggle may also be real. Their fears may absolutely be real. But their healing has never been your responsibility. This is where many deeply caring people slowly lose themselves. When you strongly feel another person's pain, especially someone you believe is emotionally blocked, your heart naturally wants to help them. You want to love them enough to make them finally feel safe. You want to explain yourself more clearly. You want to reassure them more often. You want to wait longer. You want to understand more. You want to become even more patient. You want to become softer, wiser, kinder, and even more emotionally available. But there is a very dangerous line between compassion and abandoning yourself. Loving someone should never require losing your own emotional center. Understanding another person's wounds should never mean accepting endless emotional inconsistency. Feeling compassion for their fears should never mean carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship by yourself. And perhaps this is exactly what you needed to hear today. Because the real story is not only about why they fell in love with you. It is also about what this entire connection has revealed about your own heart. Why did this affect you so deeply? Why did their silence leave such a painful mark? Why did their inconsistency pull you into such intense emotional reflection? Sometimes the people who awaken us become mirrors as well. Just as you reflected hidden parts of them, they may have reflected hidden parts of you. Perhaps they touched your deepest desire to finally be fully chosen. Perhaps they awakened old abandonment wounds you thought had already healed. Perhaps they brought your fear of receiving only partial love back to the surface. Perhaps they showed you how easily emotional intensity can be mistaken for emotional availability. That realization can hurt. But it is also incredibly powerful because awareness has the ability to change everything. Carl Jung spoke about projection, the unconscious habit of placing our unmet emotional needs onto another person. Sometimes we begin believing that someone else holds the missing piece of our emotional fulfillment. We become attached not only to who they really are, but also to everything they represent inside our minds. They become the symbol of hope, healing, redemption, closure, purpose, or even destiny itself. But eventually, life asks a much deeper question. What part of what you are searching for in them must first be rediscovered inside yourself? That single question changes the entire relationship. Because when you stop looking to another person for emotional completion, something remarkable begins to happen. You become clearer. You become calmer. You become more emotionally grounded. You become stronger. You stop begging for certainty from people who are still uncertain about themselves. You stop overthinking every text message, every silence, every delay, every inconsistency, every mixed signal. You stop making yourself smaller just to make someone else feel more comfortable with emotional closeness. And strangely enough, this inner transformation often changes the connection more than anything else ever could. Emotionally guarded people are extremely sensitive to emotional energy. They feel pressure, they feel pursuit, they notice emotional dependence. But they notice something else as well. They notice absence. They notice when the person who once reached for them emotionally becomes calm and still. They notice when someone stops chasing them and gently returns their attention back to themselves. And that moment can become a true turning point. Not because you are playing games, not because distance is a strategy, but because authenticity carries a quiet, magnetic power. When you stop abandoning yourself, the entire energy begins to shift. If they truly fell in love with you because of your emotional safety, your ability to reflect hidden truths, and your quiet power to awaken hope inside them, then the worst thing you could do now is betray those very qualities by abandoning yourself while chasing after them. Stay connected to the qualities that made them fall in love with you in the first place. Stay emotionally honest. Stay grounded. Stay warm. But remain deeply rooted in self-respect, because real love cannot continue growing where self-betrayal exists. You do not create healthy love by forcing movement. You create space for healthy love by living in truth. Truth says, I feel what I truly feel. Truth says, I will not deny this connection. Truth says, I do not need to chase what is genuinely meant to meet me. Truth says, I can love someone deeply without losing myself in the process. That kind of energy has the power to transform everything. And if they are honestly confronting the emotional walls they have spent years building, there may come a moment when the pressure inside becomes impossible for them to ignore any longer. Because suppressed love does not simply disappear. It builds over time. What is emotionally denied often returns through thoughts, dreams, memories, physical sensations, and unexpected waves of sadness. People can suppress expression for a while, but suppressing genuine feelings is far more difficult than most people realize. The heart continues speaking, especially during the night, especially in silence, especially when all distractions fade away. That may be when your absence becomes impossible for them to ignore. That may be when they replay old conversations in their mind. That may be when they revisit meaningful memories. That may be when they remember how emotionally safe they felt around you, how deeply understood they felt, how alive hope seemed whenever you were close. And eventually, if they become truly honest with themselves, they may arrive at the point where avoiding love becomes far more painful than embracing vulnerability. That is usually where real transformation begins, not when love first appears, but when running away becomes more exhausting than finally staying. You cannot force another person's awakening. You cannot rush another person's emotional growth. But you can stop interrupting that process. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is allow someone to experience the natural consequences of their own emotional choices. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is stepping back with peace instead of chasing with fear. Because real transformation cannot be borrowed from another person. It has to be chosen from within. And while you continue honoring your own truth, protecting your own peace, and respecting your own heart, you also create the space where genuine love, if it is meant to grow, has the freedom to return naturally instead of being forced into existence. Emotional avoidance. Let them experience the emptiness that comes from disconnection. Let them sit with themselves without you constantly making up for their emotional distance. Not as punishment, not as revenge, but as reality. Because real growth only happens when someone comes into contact with the truth. And sometimes, the truth sounds like this. I care about you. I understand your fear. I see your inner struggle. But I cannot carry your healing for you. That is love with healthy boundaries. That is compassion without losing yourself. That is true emotional maturity. Sometimes love is genuine and still not ready. That truth is painful because we want love to be enough. We want deep emotional feelings to guarantee the ending we hope for. We want recognition to automatically create a lasting relationship. But connection by itself does not build a relationship. Love must be expressed through courage, emotional honesty, and meaningful action. Without those things, even a powerful love can stay trapped inside possibility, and possibility can become one of the most painful emotional prisons a person ever experiences. Almost love can stay with the heart for years. Almost connection can remain in the mind long after the moment has passed. Almost